Listen to me. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are burnt out because you've been running a marathon with no map, no fuel, and no finish line. You hear me? You're not tired because you're soft. You're tired because you've been given 120% in chaos. You're drowning in your dreams because there's no structure to hold them up. Burnout isn't a sign that you're weak. It's not a flaw in your character or a lack of motivation. Burnout is a signal. It's your body, your mind, your spirit telling you that something is off, that you're pushing hard without a foundation to hold you up. You've been going 100 miles per hour with no direction, no rhythm, no rest, and now you're feeling like you're running on empty. But I'm here to tell you, it's not because you're not strong enough. It's because you're trying to carry a powerful vision without the structure it needs to survive. See, when we look at high achievers, when we look at champions, we think it's all about energy, all about intensity, all about grinding until the wheels fall off. But what we don't see is the framework behind the scenes. The early mornings with routines, the systems that protect their peace, the schedules that preserve their power. Burnout doesn't come because you care too little. It comes because you care too much without giving yourself the capacity to carry it all. That passion inside you is beautiful, but without discipline, without design, that passion will consume you instead of fuel you. I know what it feels like to wake up exhausted before the day even begins. I know what it's like to pour into everybody else and have nothing left for yourself. You're not lazy. You're running on fumes because you built a life that runs on reaction instead of intention. You jump from fire to fire, task to task, responsibility to responsibility. And at the end of the day, you wonder why you're drained. But the truth is, you're not broken. You're just burning out because your life lacks structure. Structure isn't a cage. It's a container for your greatness. It's the guardrails that keep your energy focused. It's the map that keeps you from getting lost in the chaos. When you don't have a structure, every little thing pulls your attention. Every distraction becomes a crisis. Every opportunity becomes an obligation. You say yes to everything because you don't have a system that reminds you of your real priorities. And slowly, without realizing it, you start losing the fire you once had. You start questioning whether you cut out for this. You start forgetting why you started. But listen to me, burnout is not the end. It's the beginning of something better if you choose to listen. It's the wake-up call that tells you it's time to stop operating on survival mode and start building a life that actually sustains your strength. You don't need more hustle, you need more harmony. You need structure. And I'm not talking about something rigid or robotic. I'm talking about intentional systems that protect your time, your energy, your mind, and your heart. Imagine waking up and knowing exactly how your day starts. Not with stress, not with chaos, but with clarity. Imagine carving out time for your health, your vision, your growth, and still showing up for the people you love, not out of guilt, but out of overflow. That's what structure gives you. It gives you margin. It gives you rhythm. It gives you the power to go hard and the wisdom to pull back. It allows you to push for greatness without losing your soul in the process. You don't fix burnout by quitting everything. You fix it by rebuilding with intention. You fix it by putting systems in place that give you room to breathe, to think, to move with purpose. Every time you say no to the noise, every time you say yes to structure, you take a step back toward yourself, toward your mission, toward your energy, toward your life. So no, you're not weak. You're not lost. You're not done. You are powerful beyond measure. And when you pair that power with structure, there's nothing you can't do. Burnout is just a signal. Listen to it. Let it lead you back to balance. Let it remind you, you were never meant to do this in chaos. You were born to do it with clarity, with strategy, and with strength. Structure isn't the enemy. It's the bridge from burnout to breakthrough. Structure is often misunderstood. People think it's limiting, that it boxes you in or kills creativity. But in truth, structure is the secret weapon of every high performer you admire. Look behind the scenes of any champion, any leader, any person who's dominating in their lane, and you'll find structure. Not just talent, not just motivation, a system, a rhythm, a foundation that keeps everything aligned when life gets heavy. When pressure hits, when distractions show up. It's structure that allows high performers to show up consistently, not just when they feel like it. Think about it. You don't build a skyscraper on dirt. You lay concrete. You dig deep. You create a solid base. The higher the vision, the deeper the structure has to go. And that's what most people miss. They try to build empires on emotion. They try to grind their way to greatness with no system, no schedule, no sense of direction, and then they wonder why they keep crashing, why they're constantly exhausted, why the results never match the effort. It's not because they're not working hard, it's because they're not working smart. Structure is what transforms energy into execution. You can have the biggest dreams, the most powerful goals, the fire in your soul. But if you don't have structure, you won't last. Motivation comes and goes. Hype fades. But structure stays. It's your anchor in the storm. It's the framework that turns chaos into clarity. When you have structure, you don't need to wake up hoping you feel inspired. You just follow your process. You show up, you execute, you grow. Day by day, rep by rep. Now let's get even more real. Without structure, your mind becomes a battlefield. Every decision becomes a debate. Should I do this now? Should I rest? Should I work on that goal or handle this fire? You waste energy trying to figure out what's next instead of doing what needs to be done. And slowly, that indecision becomes frustration. That frustration becomes fatigue. And that fatigue turns into burnout, all because you didn't have a system to protect your focus. High performers don't lead their success to chance. They build it into their day. They batch their tasks. They guard their mornings. They automate what drains them and lock in on what grows them. They know structure doesn't slow them down. It frees them up. It frees their mind to think bigger. It frees their time to rest deeper. It frees their heart to pour into what matters most. Structure creates the space where greatness can grow. But here's what you need to understand next. Structure alone isn't enough if you're not disciplined. Because structure gives you the plan, but discipline is what activates it. And discipline is hard. Let's not sugarcoat it. Discipline means doing what's necessary, not just what's comfortable. It means choosing your future over your feelings. It means sticking to your schedule when your emotions are screaming for an escape. But let me tell you this. The freedom, the power, the peace you're chasing, it's on the other side of that discipline. Discipline doesn't take away your power. It gives it back. In a world that's pulling you in every direction, discipline says, this is where I'm going. It puts the steering wheel back in your hands. It creates consistency in a culture of chaos. And the truth is, your dreams don't need another motivational quote. They need your consistency, your commitment, your ability to show up, even when it's hard. And here's the beauty of discipline. It compounds. One small win leads to another. One good decision creates momentum. And over time, that consistency builds confidence. You start to trust yourself again. You start to believe in your ability to follow through. And that belief, that's what breaks limits. That's what transforms your identity. That's what turns average into excellence. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, overwhelmed, lost in your own ambition, it's time to make a shift. Build the structure and honor it with discipline. Stop trying to outwork your lack of a system. Stop trying to chase results with inconsistent habits. Create the rhythm, stick to it. Let it carry you through the days when motivation fails. Because discipline won't always feel good in the moment, but it will always take you where you need to go. You want peace? Structure gives it. You want progress? Discipline delivers it. You want to go from burnout to breakthrough? Stop playing it by ear and start playing it by design. The life you want isn't built in chaos. It's built in structure. And it's powered by discipline. Your feelings lie. Let's start there. Your emotions, as powerful as they are not always accurate. They don't always reflect truth. One moment you're fired up and ready to go, the next you feel drained and want to quit everything. That's not because you're broken. It's because your life is running on emotion instead of structure. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is what steps in when feelings fail. Discipline is what keeps you moving forward when your mind is telling you to stop. And in the middle of chaos, when everything feels out of control, it's discipline that gives you something solid to hold on to. Life is unpredictable. You're going to face pressure, resistance, setbacks, and surprises. But when you've built discipline into your life, you have a weapon that protects your focus, your time, your health, and your goals. Discipline is what keeps the train on the tracks when storms hit. It keeps you from quitting on the hard days and from slacking on the good ones. It keeps you aligned with your values and your vision, not just your mood. Because let's be honest, if you only move when you feel like it, you'll never get anywhere. Feelings don't build legacies. Discipline does. Discipline is your daily commitment to your future self. It's the small decisions. Waking up when the alarm goes off, putting in the reps, even when no one's watching, saying no to distractions, even when they feel good in the moment. That's the battlefield. It's not always about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps. And here's what you need to understand. Consistency is a superpower. Most people fail not because they're incapable, but because they're inconsistent. They start strong, get tired, and stop. They don't lack potential, they lack persistence. And you know what creates persistence? Discipline. Discipline is what gets you through the dip. The part where it's not exciting anymore. The part where progress feels slow. The part where results aren't showing yet, but the effort is still required. That's the gap where most people give up. But when you have discipline, you keep going anyway. You don't let your temporary emotions make permanent decisions. You don't let tired moments rewrite your mission. You stay the course because you built that muscle. But here's the other side of the coin. Structure is what makes discipline sustainable. It's hard to stay disciplined when you don't know what you're aiming for. It's hard to stay focused when your schedule is chaos. That's why structure matters. That's why it's not just about grinding hard, it's about planning smarter. You want to be disciplined? Create an environment that makes it easier. Set clear goals. Design your day. Remove distractions. Build habits that support your mission. Because willpower is limited, but structure refuels your focus. When you wake up every morning and already know your top 3 priorities for the day, you don't waste energy guessing. When you have time blocks set for deep work, breaks, meals, and rest, you don't spiral into burnout. When you have a morning routine that centers your mind and a night routine that calms your body, you don't carry stress 24/7. That's what structure does. It supports your discipline. It takes the weight off your mind so you can channel that energy into doing what matters most. And when structure and discipline work together, that's when you become unstoppable. You're no longer at the mercy of motivation. You're no longer reactive, you're proactive. You don't just show up when it's convenient, you show up because it's who you are. You're not just someone with a dream, you're someone with the daily habits to bring it to life. You don't get thrown off track every time life gets loud. You keep moving, keep building, keep riding, because now you anchored. Now you're aligned. So let the world spin. Let the noise come. Let the chaos try to creep in. When you've got discipline in your soul and structure in your day, nothing can take you out. You'll still get tired, but you won't quit. You'll still feel pressure, but you won't fold. You'll still face storms, but you'll stand strong. Because you've built something real, something solid, something sustainable. And that's how you go the distance. We've been sold a lie. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that rest is a reward, that you only get to relax after you've earned it, that taking time for yourself is selfish, lazy, or weak. And because of that, too many people are running themselves into the ground trying to prove their worth through work, grinding every day, giving to everyone else, showing up strong on the outside but feeling empty inside. And they think this is normal. They think this is success. But I'm telling you, self-care isn't selfish. Self-care is strategic. It's not extra. It's essential. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead, build, create, or grow if you are constantly depleted. And yet so many people are living in a constant state of exhaustion, not because they're not strong, but because they never slow down long enough to refuel. They confuse busyness with productivity. They think being burned out is just part of the process. But listen, success that costs your health, your peace, your joy, and your sanity is not real success. That's survival. And we weren't made to just survive. We were made to thrive. When you start prioritizing rest, when you start honoring your body, your mind, and your spirit, everything changes. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop running on adrenaline and start operating from clarity. Rest sharpens your focus. It restores your energy. It renews your passion. It's not about being lazy, it's about being ready. It's about making sure you have the stamina to go the distance, not to sprint out the gate and collapse halfway through the race. Look at the greats. Look at high-level performers. They don't just train hard, they recover hard. They protect their energy like it's sacred because they know that if they break down, everything else does too. That's the mindset you have to develop. Your energy is your most valuable asset. And if you don't protect it, you'll end up successful in public and suffering in private. You'll be applauded by the world and anxious in your soul. That's not the life we're building. We're not chasing burnout. We're building balance. And balance doesn't mean you never work hard. It means you work with intention. It means you build rest into your structure so that it's not an afterthought. It's part of the plan. You schedule your workouts. You plan your meetings. Why wouldn't you schedule your peace? Why wouldn't you block off time to breathe, to reflect, to recharge? You owe that to yourself because without it, everything you're working so hard to build starts falling apart. You start snapping at the people you love. You start losing passion for the things you used to enjoy. You start making decisions from fatigue instead of wisdom. And it's not because you're failing, it's because you're fried. The grind is real, yes, but so is the crash. So is the cost. And if you don't start treating rest as a strategy, you will end up working twice as hard to recover what you lost, chasing things that didn't need to break you in the first place. Now let's get practical. Self-care isn't just bubble baths and vacations. It's boundaries. It's saying no to things that drain you. It's getting enough sleep, fueling your body with real food, moving your body, getting quiet, unplugging from the noise. It's pausing before you say yes to something you don't have the capacity for. It's knowing that rest is part of your preparation, not a break from your mission. When you take care of yourself, you show up sharper, stronger, more present. You bring your full self into every room you walk into. We're not out here just trying to survive another week. We're building something. We've got dreams, goals, vision. And if you're serious about that, you better get serious about protecting your energy. Because if you burn out, your dream burns out with you. Your team, your family, your vision. They all depend on the strongest, healthiest version of you. So stop waiting for permission to rest. Stop waiting for the world to slow down before you do. Build the rhythm now. Make rest part of your structure. Make peace part of your plan. Because the truth is simple. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your breakdown. And I don't want that for you. You're not here to be a machine. You're here to be a force, a focused, energized, and unshakable force. And that starts with giving yourself what you give everyone else: time, grace, care, and attention. Not someday, not when you're done. Now. We often think that big change requires big moves, that in order to fix our burnout, to turn our life around, to find our rhythm again, we need to overhaul everything. Quit the job, take a vacation, start over. But that's not true. Transformation isn't always loud. It isn't always dramatic. In fact, the biggest shifts often come from the smallest systems. Real change lives in the details. The simple, consistent things you do every single day. And those small systems, they're what create big shifts. They're what take you from overwhelmed to in control, from exhausted to empowered. When you burn out, your first instinct is to escape. You think if I could just stop everything for a while, I'll be okay. But most of the time, you don't need to quit, you need to restructure. You don't need a full reset. You need a new rhythm. Burnout is not just about how much you're doing, it's about how you're doing it. The order, the flow, the habits, the patterns. That's what the real problem is. And that's exactly where small systems can create massive change. Think about it like this. A ship doesn't sink because it's in the water. It sinks because water gets in it. You can be surrounded by stress, pressure, demands. But if you've built systems that protect your mind, your time, and your energy, that stress doesn't have to get inside you. Systems create structure, and structure gives you strength. So the goal isn't to eliminate all the challenges in your life. The goal is to build a system that allows you to handle them without breaking down. Start small. That's the key. Don't try to change your entire life in a week. Don't get caught in the trap of perfection. Focus on building one small system at a time. Something you can actually stick to. Maybe it's a 10-minute morning routine that centers you before the chaos of the day begins. Maybe it's a 15-minute evening reflection to download your thoughts and reset your focus. Maybe it's a weekly planning session on Sunday night that helps you step into your week with clarity and intention. These things sound simple, and that's the point. Simplicity is sustainable. When your life is out of control, systems bring it back into order. When your energy is all over the place, systems help you align it. You don't have to rely on motivation when you have systems in place. You don't have to make 100 little decisions every day when your structure already made them for you. That's how you protect your peace. That's how you conserve your energy for the things that actually matter. And here's what happens when you start stacking these small systems. Your identity begins to shift. You're no longer just someone trying to keep up or get by. You become someone who is grounded, focused, intentional. You start to trust yourself again. You start to feel capable again. That momentum builds on itself. One good system makes space for another. One win creates confidence for the next. And before you know it, you're no longer living in reaction, you're living in design. Systems also give you the power to say no. When you have a clear structure, you know what belongs and what doesn't. You stop giving your time to things that don't move you forward. You stop saying yes out of guilt and start saying yes out of alignment. That's freedom. That's when you start making decisions that match your goals instead of your stress. You don't need to be perfect to feel powerful. You just need to be consistent. And the way you stay consistent is by creating systems that support your mission, not systems that box you in, systems that free you up, systems that help you move with flow instead of constantly fighting fires, systems that make self-care a habit, not an afterthought, systems that remind you every single day that you are not just reacting to life, you are building it. So if burnout has been your reality, don't panic, don't retreat, get strategic, start small. Build one system, then another, and then another. Because it's not about changing everything overnight. It's about creating a rhythm that works for you. One that gives you the strength to keep rising, one step at a time. Small systems, big shifts. That's how you beat burnout. That's how you win for the long haul. You weren't made to do life alone. One of the most dangerous beliefs in burnout culture is the idea that you have to carry everything by yourself, that asking for help is weakness, that leaning on others means you're not strong enough. That mindset will break you. That mindset will have you suffering silence, putting on a strong face while you fall apart behind closed doors. The truth is, nobody rises alone. Nobody sustains greatness alone. Behind every thriving person is a system of support, a team, a tribe, a mentor, a circle. Connection isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. When you isolate yourself, you create the perfect environment for burnout to grow. Alone with your thoughts, alone with your pressure, alone with your responsibilities. You start overthinking everything. You start doubting yourself. You lose perspective. And when the weight gets too heavy, you convince yourself you just need to push harder. But the real strength is in reaching out and letting someone see behind the mask and being honest about the load you're carrying. That's where healing begins. That's where clarity starts. Because sometimes the thing you need most isn't a new strategy, it's support. Support can look different for everyone. Maybe it's a mentor who helps you navigate tough decisions. Maybe it's a friend who checks in regularly. Maybe it's a coach who helps you stay accountable. Maybe it's a therapist who gives you space to process. The point is, connection creates clarity. You don't have to do everything on your own. You're not supposed to. And if you're going to build a life that lasts, a life with vision, purpose, peace, and power, you need people around you who remind you of who you are when life makes you forget. But let's be real. Support won't show up if you keep pretending you're okay. People can't help what you hide. If you keep saying I'm fine when you're not, nobody will know you're struggling. If you keep pushing people away because you think you're being a burden, you end up burning out in silence. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the doorway to real support. And when you open up, when you let people in, you'll be surprised how much strength comes from that connection. And it's not just about asking for help. It's also about creating your environment with intention. You become like the people you're around. Their energy, their habits, their mindset, it rubs off on you. So if you're constantly surrounded by chaos, negativity, or people who drain your energy, it's gonna wear you down. But when you build a circle of people who challenge you, encourage you, and keep you grounded, that's when you grow. That's when your structure becomes sustainable. Sometimes beating burnout isn't about changing your workload, it's about changing your surroundings. Who's in your ear? Who's in your corner? Who's reminding you to rest, to reset, to keep going when it's hard? You need people who see the best in you, even when you're at your worst. People who will call you out when you're slipping and call you up when you're stuck. That's not just emotional. That's strategic. That's part of the system. And support goes both ways. Just like you need others, others need you. Sometimes the best way to stay strong is to show up for someone else, to remind them of what they carry, to pour back into others what you've been given. Because when we lift each other, we all rise. When we build a culture of support, burnout becomes the exception, not the norm. We start to live with rhythm, with rest, with resilience. So if you've been carrying the world on your shoulders, it's time to shift. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to prove anything by breaking yourself down. You are allowed to need help. You are allowed to receive it. And when you surround yourself with the right people, you create an environment that feeds your focus, fuels your fire, and protects your peace. That's how you beat burnout. Not just by building structure inside, but by building support around you. The structure holds you up. The support holds you together. And together, they create the strength to rise, to last, and to lead. You were never meant to walk this road alone. So don't reach out, lock in, and rise together.